The rain came down in sheets that November evening, turning the city streets into rivers of despair. Maya stood beneath the flickering streetlight, her threadbare coat doing little to shield her from the cold. In her trembling hands, she held the only thing of value she owned, a delicate gold locket that had belonged to her grandmother. It was all she had left of her family, all she had left of better days. But tonight, hunger gnawed at her stomach, with such ferocity that sentiment seemed like a luxury she could no longer afford. Her daughter, Emma, just 7 years old, waited in their cramped shelter 3 blocks away, her small face pale with malnutrition. Maya had watched her baby grow thinner each day, had heard her cries, softened from hunger into an eerie silence that terrified her more than any tears ever could. A mother's love, she had learned, could break your heart in ways you never imagined possible. She walked into the pawn shop with her head held as high as pride would allow, though inside she was crumbling. The man behind the counter barely glanced at her before offering $30 for the locket, $30 for a lifetime of memories, for the last connection to her grandmother's gentle hands and loving smile. Maya wanted to argue, to explain that this piece held more value than any price tag could reflect. But what good were memories when your child was starving? She nodded, took the crumpled bills, and walked out into the relentless rain. What Maya didn't notice was the man who had been standing in the corner of that pawn shop, watching the entire exchange with eyes that saw far more than most people ever did. Alexander Winters was a name that appeared on Forbes lists and in boardroom discussions across the world. As the founder of one of the largest tech companies in the nation, he had everything money could buy. But tonight, dressed in an ordinary jacket and jeans, he had slipped away from his security detail to walk through the city streets alone, seeking something he couldn't quite name. Perhaps it was authenticity in a world that had become increasingly artificial to him. Or maybe it was simply the desire to remember what life felt like before the billions had created an invisible wall between him and ordinary human experience. He had come into the pawn shop on impulse, drawn by some instinct he didn't understand. And then he had witnessed something that struck him with the force of revelation. He watched this woman, clearly on the edge of desperation, handle that locket with such tenderness before surrendering it. He saw the way her hands shook, not just from cold, but from the emotional violence of what she was being forced to do. In that moment, Alexander saw something he hadn't seen in years of high-powered meetings and million-dollar deals. He saw pure, selfless love in action. Without thinking, he approached the counter after Maya left. "That locket the woman just sold, I'll give you $500 for it." The pawnbroker's eyes widened with greed and surprise, but he quickly produced the piece. Alexander held it carefully, opening the delicate clasp. Inside were 2 faded photographs, a young woman who resembled Maya, and a little girl with bright eyes and a smile that could light up the world. On the opposite side, engraved in elegant script, were the words, "Love never fails." Something shifted in Alexander's chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in longer than he cared to admit. His own grandmother had raised him after. His parents died in a car accident when he was 12. She had worked 3 jobs to put food on the table, had sacrificed everything so he could have opportunities she never did. It was her love and sacrifice that had driven him to succeed, to build something meaningful. But somewhere along the way, he had forgotten that the purpose of success wasn't just accumulation. It was the ability to give back, to lift others the way he had once been lifted. He left the pawn shop and stepped into the rain, looking both directions down the street. There, he caught sight of Maya's figure moving slowly through the downpour, and he followed at a distance. He watched as she stopped at a small grocery store, carefully counting her money before selecting the most basic items: bread, milk, some fruit, a can of soup. Nothing for herself, he noticed. Everything chosen with someone else in mind. Alexander followed her to a shelter run out of an old church basement. He watched from across the street as she disappeared inside, then waited. Through a small window, he could see her kneeling beside a small bed where a little girl lay. He saw the child's face light up when she saw the food, saw Maya brush the hair from her daughter's forehead with infinite gentleness. In that moment, Alexander Winters, the man who had everything, realized he had been living in poverty of a different kind, a poverty of purpose. of connection, of the kind of love that asks nothing and gives everything. He stood in the rain for a long time, thinking. Then he pulled out his phone and made a series of calls. His assistant, used to strange requests at odd hours, took notes without question. By the time Alexander finally walked away from that shelter, plans were already in motion. The next morning, Maya woke to a knock on the door of their small room. A woman in a professional suit stood there with a warm smile. "Ms. Chen? My name is Jennifer Rodriguez. I'm with the Winters Foundation. May I speak with you for a moment?" Maya's heart raced with worry. Had she done something wrong? Was this about unpaid bills? But the woman's kind eyes set her at ease, at least a little. Jennifer explained that Alexander Winters himself had personally selected Maya's family for their new initiative, a program designed to help single parents get back on their feet. There would be housing assistance, job training, health care for Emma, and an educational trust fund for her future. Maya listened in stunned silence, tears streaming down her face. It seemed impossible, like a dream she was afraid to believe in. "But why?" Maya finally whispered. "Why us? Why me?" Jennifer smiled, though Maya noticed a shimmer of emotion in her eyes, too. "Mr. Winters asked me to give you this." She handed Maya a small box. Inside was the locket, polished and gleaming as if brand new, and beneath it, a handwritten note. "Dear Maya," it read, "your grandmother was right. Love never fails. What you did for your daughter reminded me why I started this journey in the first place. You didn't just sell a treasure for food. You demonstrated that the real treasure is the love that makes such sacrifices possible. Please accept this assistance not as charity, but as an investment in the kind of love and strength this world desperately needs. Your grandmother would be proud. I hope my grandmother is proud too. Thank you for reminding me what truly matters." Bye. Maya clutched the locket to her chest, overwhelmed by emotions she couldn't name. Emma, stronger already after just one decent meal, wrapped her small arms around her mother's waist. "Mama, why are you crying?" "Because sometimes," Maya said, her voice breaking with gratitude and hope, "the world surprises you with kindness just when you need it most." 3 months later, Maya started her new job as an administrative assistant at a nonprofit that helped homeless families, a position Jennifer had helped her train for. Emma thrived in her new school, her laughter returning along with the color in her cheeks. And sometimes, when Maya walked through the city streets, she thought about the mysterious billionaire who had seen her at her lowest moment and chosen to lift her up rather than look away. Alexander Winters never met Maya face to face. He didn't need recognition or gratitude. That night in the rain had given him something far more valuable, a renewed sense of purpose, a reminder that behind every statistic about poverty and struggle was a real person with a story of love and sacrifice worth honoring. The Winters Foundation expanded their program, helping thousands of families across the country, each one selected not for their productivity or potential return on investment, but for their demonstration of the kind of love that makes us human. Sometimes, in moments of quiet reflection, Alexander would take out his phone and look at a photo his assistant had sent him. Maya and Emma on their first day in their new apartment, smiling with a joy that no amount of money could buy, but that money, when used with wisdom and compassion, could help protect. The locket had been her only treasure, but in selling it, Maya had revealed something priceless, the enduring power of a mother's love. And in witnessing it, Alexander had found his own treasure again, the knowledge that wealth means nothing unless it serves love, and that sometimes the most profound investments we can make are in the simple dignity and hope of another human being. In the end, they had both been searching for the same thing in that rainy November night. Proof that in a world that often feels cold and indifferent, humanity still flickers like a candle in the darkness, waiting for someone to notice, to care, to fan it into flame.